Did you know that lithium, the mineral that powers electric car batteries, is at the epicenter of a silent war that could change the future of the planet as we know it? Maybe you think that the biggest challenge facing electric cars is range or price, but what if I told you that the real power play is happening now, behind the scenes, with lithium being the big protagonist? No, I'm not talking about an ordinary dispute. This battle involves governments, large corporations, and even world powers, all vying for control of a resource that, if well manipulated, could determine the planet's energy future. Did you know that the biggest global powers are preparing to guarantee their part in this game? And, most shockingly, what many don't know is that the lithium war could be even more dangerous than any oil crisis we've ever seen. And you've probably never heard of it. We are at a critical moment. Increasingly, lithium, essential for electric car batteries, is seen as the key to the energy revolution. But at the same time, its scarcity and the competition for this resource are fueling a silent conflict that is not being widely discussed. Behind this war is the manipulation of powerful interests that have a lot to lose from the advancement of electric cars and the shift to renewable energy. Lithium, which seemed to be just another mineral, has become a valuable asset, capable of transforming economies, energies, and even global geopolitical strategies. And you, as a consumer, as a citizen, must understand how this directly impacts your life. Now, imagine for a moment, what would happen if the race for this resource intensified? Could our dependence on lithium become a greater threat than any energy crisis in the past? Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal now will completely change your insight into electric cars, the future of energy, and the real lithium war. What you discover may be more disturbing than you imagine, and the answer is closer than you think. In this video, you will discover what is behind the growing demand for lithium and how it is not only the fuel for electric car batteries, but also the center of a truly global conspiracy that could profoundly affect our everyday lives. Did you know that while most of us are focused on the electric car revolution, there are powerful forces trying to manipulate control of this fundamental resource? Lithium, once considered a relatively unknown material, has now become the target of fierce competition taking place in the background. And believe me, the impact of this silent war goes far beyond battery factories and roads lined with electric vehicles. The growing demand for electric cars, driven by the transition to renewable energy, is directly linked to the shortage of lithium, the metal that powers the batteries of these machines. But did you know that lithium is not just a raw material for electric cars? It is shaping a new power dynamic in the geopolitical landscape, generating an arms race of interests between governments and corporations. Instead of oil and gas, we are talking about a very rare mineral, whose extraction is surrounded by controversy, with countries competing for ownership of the richest mines and companies trying to secure the most lucrative contracts. All this for a metal that, in the coming years, could be more valuable than gold. But what you may not know is that this battle for lithium is being orchestrated by a network of hidden interests that could alter the course of history. The lithium industry, like the oil industry in the past, is being manipulated by large players who have a lot to gain from controlling this resource. Have you ever thought that the advancement of electric cars could just be a smokescreen for a much more complex agenda? What's behind this agenda is much bigger than you imagine. And you'll soon understand how lithium has become the turning point for a new kind of Cold War, where information, energy, and market control are intertwined in ways you never imagined. You are about to discover the unknown stories of how global powers are investing billions in secret projects to ensure their supremacy in the lithium market. But that's not all. What many don't realize is that lithium is also behind a real battle for sustainability. While promises of a greener future are being made with electric cars, few people are asking whether the solution is truly sustainable in the long term. After all, lithium production involves enormous environmental costs, and we are talking about a scarcity of resources that could create new crises in the future, much more difficult to solve than any problem with oil. Lithium, in the end, could end up becoming the new oil, and you will understand what this means for the future of energy, transportation, and of course, our global economy. So why is this topic so crucial for you? What's at stake here isn't just the electric car revolution. Make no mistake, lithium is at the center of a web of power that involves large corporations, governments, and even interest groups with a vision of the future very different from what most of us imagine. In this video, you will see how this battle for supremacy in controlling lithium can redefine the direction of technological development, energy policies, and, most importantly, our society as a whole. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change your view of the future of renewable energy, the electric car market, and, most importantly, how the fight for control of lithium could transform everything you think about the world we live in. Get ready, because what comes next is something that it can completely change your perspective on the energy that powers the modern world. You'll understand what's really at stake and how lithium could be the key to power in the coming decades. Don't miss it. In recent years, lithium has become the fuel that powers the electric car revolution, being the central pillar behind one of the greatest technological advances of the 21st century. But at the same time, what many don't know is that lithium is also fueling a massive geopolitical war, with global powers fighting fiercely for control of this vital resource that is becoming key to the world's energy future. Imagine what this represents for the future of electric mobility, for technological advances, and even for the future of nations. Lithium is no longer just an ore. It has become one of the largest and most valuable assets on the planet. The story of lithium begins more than a century ago, but what many people don't know is that it is not a recent discovery. Since the early days of electrification, lithium has been considered a promising alternative for storing energy. However, its production and exploration were always limited, with little attention being paid to the mineral until, suddenly, it became the star of a new type of revolution. What was once considered a rare and inaccessible resource is now at the epicenter of a global race involving governments, corporate giants, and even major emerging powers. Lithium, essential for the batteries that power electric cars, has become a key factor in the transition from a fossil fuel-dependent economy to a more sustainable world, and at the same time the perfect setting for a silent battle for power and control. But lithium isn't just important for electric cars. Its use goes beyond that. It is the key to a global energy revolution, where renewable energy sources such as solar and wind need effective storage systems to ensure a continuous and stable distribution of electricity. And that's where lithium comes in again, powering the batteries that store this renewable energy. The entire world is moving towards an era of dependence on clean energy sources, and lithium is fundamental to enabling this change. However, as demand for this mineral grows, competition for its sources also increases. And it is precisely this race to control lithium that is having a profound and often undiscussed impact on international relations and the balance of power. Lithium extraction, although relatively simple in terms of process, involves complex issues regarding the environment and human rights. Countries such as Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile, known as the Lithium Triangle, are home to the largest lithium reserves in the world, and thus become the epicenters of the dispute over this mineral. But lithium mining is not without controversy. Water scarcity, environmental damage caused by extraction, and social issues associated with work and exploration in local communities have generated increasing pressure on the governments of these nations and the companies that benefit from the mineral's extraction. What many don't realize is that this fight for lithium is closely linked to the issue of sustainability, as what should be the key to a cleaner future may, paradoxically, be creating new environmental and social problems. At the same time, major auto corporations such as Tesla, General Motors, and others are in a constant battle to ensure they have access to the lithium needed for mass production of electric vehicles. Automakers positioning themselves as leaders in the electric car revolution are increasingly becoming dependent on this mineral. And this is the crux of the story. Lithium is not just a chemical element, but a strategic piece on the board of an economic war that could affect the automobile market and even redefine global trade relations. But how did lithium become such an important issue that it is considered a key player in controlling the global energy future? The answer to this question involves both technological and political questions. With growing concerns about climate change and the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, many governments have begun to look at electric cars and renewable energy sources as viable solutions to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Lithium, therefore, became indispensable. However, what few know is that control over lithium sources goes beyond simply providing it for the production of cars and batteries. It has the power to shape the future of global economies. Lithium control is a crucial factor in defining which countries will have access to the most advanced clean energy technologies and, consequently, which nations can become leaders in the new global economic scenario. Lithium not only powers electric car batteries, but also represents a new type of dispute, a type of modern Cold War, where nations seek to secure control of the mineral to secure their position in the world's energy future. What we are seeing is a scenario in which geopolitical interests and economic disputes are overlapping, with lithium as the element that defines who will win. The lithium war is not just about access to a resource. It is about who controls the future of energy, mobility, and global economies. And the most fascinating thing is that while great powers like the United States and China compete for control of lithium sources, many of us, consumers and citizens, little know how deeply this war is already affecting us. As the world moves towards a more sustainable future, with the promise of electric cars increasingly a reality, the real battle will be over who has access to the energy that powers these cars and the rest of the technologies that are shaping the future. And lithium, which has already become a central part of this equation, is the key to this revolution. But what is at stake here is much bigger than the transition to a green economy. Lithium control is actually the battle for the global economic and political future. And while the powers that be fight for this resource, we, the consumers, must begin to realize the impact this can have on our own future. What you don't know is that, behind the growing demand for lithium, there are hidden interests of governments and large corporations willing to manipulate the situation to control not only the electric car market, but also the future of renewable energy. This fight for control of lithium is not just about obtaining a key battery resource, but involves a complex web of geopolitical disputes, corporate interests, and a power play that could shape the future of the planet. Lithium, which seemed to be a simple chemical element, has become the key to a new modern Cold War where the weapons are secret agreements, market manipulations, and political influences operating behind the scenes. What is happening now is a true global conspiracy, and few know how much it will impact our future. The growing dependence on lithium by the electric car and renewable energy industries is not just a reflection of a need to transition to a more sustainable future, but rather a reflection of the way the great powers are positioning their chips on the next energy revolution. Imagine a world where control of lithium sources is as valuable as oil was in the last century. This is exactly what is at stake, and what you may not realize is that many of the world's largest economies are playing dirty to secure their share of this new market, while society stands on the sidelines, without realizing that the real fight is not just about cars and batteries, but about who will control the energy of the future. Lithium is becoming a power currency. This is not just about guaranteeing access to the mineral for the production of batteries, but a dispute for control of global energy infrastructure. Large corporations, especially those in the automotive and renewable energy sectors, have invested billions to secure lithium supply contracts, and many of them have secret contracts that guarantee privileged access to this resource, often to the detriment of countries that have large reserves. Countries such as Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile, which hold the largest lithium reserves in the world, have seen their economies drained by agreements that favor foreign companies, while their own populations continue to struggle with the economic and environmental consequences of extracting this mineral. At the same time, governments of global powers, such as the United States and China, are intensifying their campaigns to ensure control of these resources, investing in exploration policies and, often, even heavy diplomacy to guarantee access to these mines. Behind this manipulation of natural resources, what we see is a game of interests where the biggest winners are, most of the time, billion-dollar companies and governments that take advantage of the growing demand for lithium to advance their political and economic agendas. What many don't know is that lithium is not just a strategic piece for electric cars and renewable energy, but an element that can profoundly affect global geopolitics. The great powers are positioning themselves to ensure that, at the end of this war, they will own the energy that powers the future, and lithium, now more than ever, is the key to achieving that dominance. What's really happening here is a battle for control of the energy revolution. Corporations are in a race to ensure they are responsible for building the battery infrastructures that will power the future, while governments are playing their political cards to ensure their economies dominate the global energy market. And in the midst of it all, what you don't see are the secret deals, market manipulation games, and diplomatic pressures that shape everything you see as the future of transportation and clean energy. The truth is that while you focus on the advancement of electric cars, the big corporations and powers are pulling the strings of this new game, where the real victory is not about who builds the best cars, but about who controls the energy sources that power them. Lithium, which should be the key to a sustainable future, is being drained and controlled by those who have the power to manipulate it, leaving only a small part of the world to benefit from this energy revolution. Local communities where lithium is mined often do not see the benefits of this exploration. While large corporations and rich countries are flush with profit, local populations face inhumane working conditions, environmental disasters, and a complete lack of control over what is happening on their own lands. Lithium exploitation is creating a cycle of injustice that goes far beyond what you imagine. And most shocking of all is that these corporations and governments are taking advantage of the climate crisis and the search for ecological solutions to hide the hidden interests behind this new gold rush. And the worst of all is that history is repeating itself. Just as happened with oil in the last century, the control of lithium is creating a new global dependence, where great powers are positioning their economies to dominate the production and supply of this strategic mineral. Lithium may seem like a simple resource for charging electric car batteries, but it is, in fact, the new oil. And whoever controls lithium controls the future of energy in the world. This silent struggle, where billions of dollars are being thrown into a geopolitical war, may have just begun, but its effects will be reflected in each of us, from the price of electric cars to the way we live our lives in the future. As you watch this electric car revolution unfold, it's important to realize that behind the promises of a more sustainable future, there is an invisible war for energy supremacy, and lithium is the resource that could decide who will be the winner. Everything that's happening with lithium, with electric cars, with energy renewable, goes far beyond what it seems on the surface, and if you don't delve deeper into this conflict, you could end up being manipulated by the forces that are really in charge. The stakes are much greater than you might imagine, and this is just beginning. And the most surprising thing, some experts say the fight for control of lithium could lead to a crisis as big as the oil crisis. But instead of a hot war, it will be a cold war for one metal's dominance, and no one is talking about it. Over the years, the entire world has focused on the search for alternatives to oil and gas, but what many don't know is that lithium, essential to the electric car and renewable energy revolution, is becoming the new key to global stability, or lack thereof. What's happening behind the scenes in the lithium industry could be more damaging than anyone could imagine. So far, we've talked about global powers and corporations fighting for control of lithium sources. But here comes the real shock. Although lithium is often treated as the solution to a greener and more sustainable future, the truth is that its exploitation could generate a new type of energy crisis. Extracting this mineral, which is vital for electric car batteries and renewable energy, storage is not as clean as industries would have us believe. The point is that lithium mining is starting to have environmental impacts as devastating as those we have caused over decades with oil extraction. Just imagine. As demand for electric cars and batteries increases, lithium extraction is reaching levels we've never seen before. The point is that although lithium batteries are considered an ecological alternative to combustion engines, the extraction process and the environmental damage caused by mining are, in fact, a time bomb. To efficiently extract lithium, immense volumes of water are needed, an amount that is often taken from extremely dry regions, such as the Atacama Desert in Chile or regions of Bolivia. This extraction consumes so much water that it directly affects local ecosystems, harming communities and biodiversity that depend on these natural resources to survive. Additionally, did you know that waste generated from lithium mining can contaminate rivers and soil around mines? Large-scale mining not only drains natural resources from regions, but also generates large amounts of toxic waste, which often ends up being discarded without control. This puts communities living near these mines at risk of disease, poisoning, and irreversible environmental devastation. What appeared to be a transition to a more sustainable future may, in reality, be creating a new environmental crisis. An invisible crisis where the price of clean energy may be more expensive than we imagine. Now, here's the big deal. While we're all focused on how electric cars will save the planet, we're failing to look at the true costs of lithium, which in some ways can be likened to a new form of black gold. The shocking thing is that, rather than freeing ourselves from the dominance of fossil fuels, we are simply creating a new dependence. A dependence on a resource that, although promising, is equally difficult to exploit and sustainable. The lithium market is already being manipulated by a growing number of corporate players who see the mineral as a means of gaining geopolitical power. Like oil, lithium is becoming a bargaining chip, something that could determine the future of economies, international politics, and even the environment. Lithium control could very well be the next inflection point in the global economy. Those who control lithium will not only have the power to shape the future of mobility and renewable energy, but they will also be able to control the global energy infrastructure so that, within a few years, lithium becomes as strategic as oil was in the 20th century. This means that, just as in the past, the fight for control of the resource will not just be about who has the most reserves or who has the most access to the material, but about who will have the ability to define the rules of the game, dictating the price of energy, mobility, and sustainability. But that's not all. There is another layer to this story. One that most of us are not seeing. Lithium is becoming the new battleground between two major global powers, the United States and China. Both countries are frantically vying for control of lithium mines and extraction technologies as they try to secure a dominant position in the battery market. China, in particular, has invested heavily in lithium-rich countries such as Chile and is developing its own supply networks to ensure it has continued access to the mineral. The United States, on the other hand, is trying to accelerate its own lithium production, driven by the need to ensure its energy independence and avoid being dependent on foreign reserves. What is at stake here is not just access to lithium, but dominance in the electric vehicle and battery sector, which is one of the most promising industries of the future. Most surprising of all, this lithium Cold War is happening while the public is being fed the idea that the transition to electric cars will save the planet. However, the reality is much more complex and bleak. Control of lithium is being carefully manipulated by those who have the power to control the energy of the future, and in doing so, they are building a new type of economic empire, where freedom and access to sustainable energy are determined by the few. What we are seeing is a complete turnaround, where the battle for a cleaner, greener future may be unintentionally creating a new form of energy oppression, an oppression that puts us once again at the mercy of large corporations and governments with vested interests. Therefore, what seemed to be a revolution towards sustainability may, in fact, be a new cycle of exploration, where real power will no longer be in the hands of oil holders, but in the hands of lithium controllers. And the most shocking thing is that the society, in its pursuit of an energy transition, may be paving the way for a future in which true, clean energy becomes just another facade, while lithium control turns into one of the biggest power plays in recent history. Now, you may be wondering, how does this affect my daily life? Well, this war over lithium is directly linked to the price of electric cars, our dependence on batteries, and even our energy future. You've probably noticed the rise in the price of electric cars in recent years, and it's not just inflation that's behind it. The cost of lithium has a direct impact, and this goes beyond the price of vehicles. The issue is that lithium, essential for electric car batteries, has become a strategic resource of great value, which means that as its demand grows, corporations and countries are frantically vying for control of the mineral's mines. With the shortage of lithium, the production of batteries, and therefore the production of electric cars, is becoming increasingly expensive. This directly affects your pocket. The price of batteries, which represent a large part of the cost of an electric car, has risen in recent years, making it more difficult for automakers to achieve the goal of offering affordable vehicles to the general public. This slows down the popularization of electric cars, making the promise of a more sustainable future seem distant. To make matters worse, while demand for electric cars and clean energy solutions grows, access to lithium is restricted, making it even more difficult to keep prices affordable. Furthermore, the war for lithium is not limited to electric cars. This mineral is also essential for electronic devices that we use daily, such as cell phones, laptops, tablets, and even energy storage systems. Imagine the impact of this on your daily life. A lithium shortage could cause electronics prices to increase, which will affect not only your ability to afford a new device, but also the price of technologies that are essential to our modern lives. The problem goes beyond the simple question of price. Lithium, as we have seen, is a scarce resource, and its extraction is beginning to raise serious environmental concerns. Large lithium mines, which are mainly located in Latin American countries such as Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia, have a major impact on the environment and local communities. Lithium extraction consumes enormous amounts of water, which directly affects local populations who already face water scarcity. This environmental impact has generated protests and social movements that seek to raise awareness of the irreparable damage caused by mining without due ecological responsibility. So, how does this affect you? Simply put, lithium dependence is forging a new type of energy dependence that puts consumers in a vulnerable position. Control of lithium and exploration policies for these resources will increasingly determine the prices of renewable energy and associated technologies. For example, the production of lithium batteries that store solar and wind energy is directly linked to the control of lithium. The dispute between powers and companies for this control could delay the adoption of technologies that could transform the way we consume energy, making the future more sustainable and accessible. So, what's at stake here isn't just the electric car revolution. We're talking about a new kind of global economy, where decisions about who controls lithium directly influence the prices you pay for everything from electricity to the devices we use every day. And as you watch this transformation unfold, it's important to realize that the fight for lithium will directly affect your life, your finances, and even the way you interact with technology in the future. In short, the lithium war is a fight for control of the energy of the future. The price you pay for access to sustainable technologies is being determined by international disputes and corporate interests that are beyond your reach. And this is changing the way the energy future will be built. And then, if you made it to the end, it means you're really interested in what's happening behind the scenes of the electric car and renewable energy revolution. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Sign up now so you don't miss any of the next videos and stay up to date with everything that's going on in this power game. Oh, and before you go, if you like this content, leave a like to help the channel grow and reach more people who also want to understand what's behind this revolution. And for those who watched until the end, I want to know, what is your opinion on the lithium war? Comment below what you think is really at stake in this dispute for such a strategic resource. I'll be keeping an eye on the comments. Now, don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the screen. What I'm going to reveal there will leave you even more surprised by everything you thought about renewable energy and the future of electric cars. Don't miss it.